I can stay away. I can stay away. I try to. I can stay away. I can't love you no more.
Hello world, this is JD. When I was 16, my whole world was turned upside down. I made one of the most horrific decisions in my life, and it cost me. I was charged with first-degree murder, armed robbery with a firearm, and sentenced to 2 natural life terms in prison without the possibility of parole. And I've served 31 years in prison. What's up, world? It's JD again. You know, coming to you live, giving it to you raw, uncut, uncensored, about what time it was with me in prison. You know, last time I left off, I know I left y'all a little bit hanging, but I'm gonna get right to it, right? You know, the property room lady. Oh yeah, she was bad. She was sexy now. You know, and she had my nose wide open. I'm talking about like a freight train was going through it. You know, I mean, I was coming out to the property room every chance that I got. I'm talking about violating and all. But check this out. You know, about a month into our little, sexcapade, I used to see a lot of other dudes go down there to the property room too, right? So I'm like, okay, I don't know they handling their business, because when I first came down there, I came down there to get me some shoes, some clothes, little R&Ns, you know what I'm saying? So me seeing these people walk up and down there all the time, and it being the property room in the prison didn't, move me at all. But one day I was walking from the property room, me and my partner, and a dude stopped me and he asked me, he said, why y'all always be coming to the property room? So I looked at my partner and I looked at him and I said, what business is yours when and where and why we come to the property room? Is I'm worried about your business. And so he just looked at me and I looked at him, right? And we walked away. So, in prison, the first 4-5 years I was in there, until now, I learned that, when you don't know who a person is, you investigate. So the first thing I went to doing is investigating this cat. I'm like, man, who this dude is? So, dudes telling me, oh, this dude was at another camp. Because dude had jewelry on. I'm talking about he had fly stuff that I didn't have. He had big, Gucci links, all this different gold and all this stuff here. Only thing I had always in will forever have is my mouthpiece. I know how to talk. That's what I do. So, when I did my PSI on him, turns out this dude was gay at another institution. And he was here at South Bay chasing the babies here, trying to kill him. I couldn't, I had to spray him. So when I went to the window the next time to see the lady in the property room, I said, man, such and such? She was like, yeah, I know such and such. And I said, man, check this out, man. It ain't my business. You know what I'm saying? Because I only worry about me, what I got going on. But man, you got dealings with this dude, you messing with him? Because dude checked me outside the property room the other day, asked me why I come down here. Oh, don't pay him no mind. I'm like, man, listen, the dude messed with punks at his other camp. So when I said that to her, I looked in her eyes. And I can see it in her eyes that she hadn't been with this dude too. Now when that recollection came to my mind, that this girl, now I wasn't the only one doing this here, that it was a bunch of dudes in here that got all kind of stuff going on, I snapped. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I said, man, I might be dying. I see any scar I seen on my arm, I went to medical about. I couldn't get this thing out my conscience. I was like, man, this girl stuck with her, and you know what? I had no rubber. You feel me? I went straight out raw. I had to forget that, just because I wasn't on the street, that dudes out there still died. So, and then on top of that, I'm in Bear Glade. It was the AIDS capital of the world at the time, so I'm going crazy. I can't even sleep. I'm in the cell, tossing and turning. You know, so I go to the property room and I tell the girl, I said, listen, I said, check this out. I said, you not saying what you said the other day let me know that you and this dude had dealing. I said, I'm finna go to medical, pay my $5, because that's how much medical costs on the prison. $5. Pay my $5 and get HIV tested. If I come back here positive, you and me both gonna leave this compound and homeboy. So listen, I'm sweating bullets, waiting on this test to come back. And it came back negative. I blew. You know what I'm saying? But I told her, you know, I think I scared her because I told her I'd snatch out that window if I died. You know what I'm saying? And I learned a valuable lesson there. You know, even if you're in prison, you've been deprived of sexual favors, you know, you better still wear rubber. You gonna leave here too. But anyway, that was a story in itself. That was a escapade. That was a learned lesson. But check this out. You know, I'm 19 at the time. I'm young. I'm feeling myself. You know, I feel like I'm unbreakable. When I was at, you know, ACI, I had a dude named Amp, and I don't mean to go back to another story, but y'all gotta understand what I'm talking about, because you know, you can look at me on the camera and see that I got a little size about me. I done got a little older, but back in the day, I used to be a little bit more buffer than I am right now. And it was a reason for that. The reason why I had to get buff is because when I came to ACI, everybody on the compound looked like Lou Ferrigno. Everybody was huge. And if y'all don't know who Lou Ferrigno is, he won the weightlifting contest year after years after years after years. I'm thinking it's the 80s or the 90s, because I do look young, but I am 47. So, you know, everybody on the compound was huge. I'm talking about the punks was huge. You know, the teenagers was huge. You know, when I got there, the first time I got off the bus, the dude snatched my popcorn out my hand. Told me, Jit, what you gonna do about it? You know, everybody stopped and was looking at me. So guess what I do? I swung on him and I ran. I showed up there, and I ain't ashamed to say it. You know, and I was waiting to see if I heard his footsteps behind me. You know, I did that because I was, you know, 17 years old, and I was probably about 180 pounds second wet. And it was people getting destroyed up in there, literally. So I got with a dude named Amp. Amp was from Miami. Amp got me to working out. I'm talking about every day. You know, he telling me, man, I'm gonna teach you how to eat. Got me eating. I'm talking about I'm sick, throwing up, all kind of stuff. But after a while, I started seeing the change in my little physique, man. People started recognizing and seeing that, okay, little Jit can bump, but he got a little size with him now, so they would just stroll up, backing away from me then. But this all helped me at South Bay, because when I got to South Bay, you know, I'm ripped there. I'm cut up. I got waves. Don't have at the bald head right now. It's gold, but back then, I had waves. And when I get time, I'm going to throw some pictures up here to show y'all that. But anyway, get back to our story. You know, when I got to South Bay, I was right. I had all the tools. That's what I had in my mind at the time. I had all the tools, and I would not be denied. I was after everything that moved there. You know, I didn't care if I go to jail or not. You know, I was at everything that moved. My whole mindset was consumed at that time with females and how I can come up. And I did both them. You know, the property room lady wasn't the only one. I hate to admit that I was really a whore up in prison. You know what I'm saying? I had to admit it. I was deprived. I got down, came down young. And then, you know, when I think about my days and the things that I used to do back then, you know, I'm embarrassed because I ain't had no control, you know, and I hope this can expose the uncontrolled dudes out there that don't know that, you know, just because you can stop a certain thing on the outside don't mean you got control of it, you know, because that's what people want to see at the time. But do you really got control over whatever you got going on? You know what I'm saying? So you will see this in the story that I'm about to display to you. Because I thought I had control of a lot of stuff, but I really didn't know it. You know, after the property room lady, I had two more ladies, and one was on one shift and the one was on another. You talking about drama on the high seas. That's what it was. Because, you know, on the outside looking in, they was looking at me saying, boy, JD doing this thing, man. JD, these girls, they always talking to him. He's sneaking around. When he leave out the office station, he got bags. They don't know what's in it, but it be food and whatnot. You know, but this is what they seeing, but they don't see the drama. They don't see, you know, me ducking and dodge and trying to stay out of Dodge, not trying to go to jail. All these different things that I, you know, thought I needed at the time. You know, in prison, one of the worst things that can happen to you is losing your self-worth. You know, you start not understanding what you worth, you know, because you're really not worth anything with somebody telling you what to do and how to do it every day. And that's what we got told to by the officers. You know, an older dude stepped to me one time and he said, Devin, he said, I'm gonna tell you something, life in here is like stop signs. He said, an officer, no matter what bars they wear on their collars, they're stop signs, they're yield signs. So when you see them, you know, you got to acknowledge what they are and handle yourself accordingly. And he said another thing I'm gonna tell you. He said, man, how you present yourself in life is how you gonna get treated. You know, I don't care if you on the streets or when you in here. And I never forgot that, because when I went somewhere, I presented myself how I want to get treated back. I did that, you know, and it came around just like that. And when I went to South Bay, you know, that attracted a lot of female attention, the strength that I had. But, you know, I had a partner named Chili Mac. And I know y'all gonna laugh at that. Chili Mac was an old school pimp from St. Petersburg. Yeah, he was red, had green eyes. And he said, man, listen, I'm cleaner than mosquitoes Peter. I was like, what? What does that mean? And he said, man, if you don't know what that means, you's a tender dick daddy from Cincinnati. I used to ball out this dude, but guess what? Chili was really what he was. Because, man, every female on the compound loved this dude. Brought him food. Did whatever he told him to do. I'm talking about officers. And that had to be, you know, looked upon as something to be dealt with. So, one point, I met a female. Me and her got tight. I ain't gonna tell you what job we was, or what we worked at. But the female that I met, we end up screwing each other's heads off. We screwed each other's heads off so much till all I could think about every day was her. Every day, all day. And as a young man growing up in prison, you know, deprived of female companionship, you know, everything that I got in there at that time I fell in love with. Yeah, it was easy for me to fall in love, especially when you get stuff like that and you ain't had it in years, you know. And the girls, they was getting all the attention from it. So one girl in particular, she drugged me so much, and then all of a sudden she cut me off. I couldn't stand it. I was hawking on the breezeway. You know, I was trying to see if her car pulled up in the parking lot. You know, I couldn't keep this girl off my mind. I was trying to get her handkerchief so I could smell it when she was off work. I had it bad. And when she cut me off and told me that was it, I didn't understand why. I couldn't believe it. You know, so I went to Chili, and I was like, Chili, I said, listen, man, I'm going through some problems. Chili said, well, listen, John, you know, tell me what you're going through. And so I told him and explained everything to him. And Chili told me, he said, listen, Devin, he said, if you want to get that girl back or you want to get even, I'm going to tell you what you do. Not say a word to that girl when you go wherever you work at. Don't say nothing else to her. Please don't say nothing to her. Because if you say something to her, you let her know you like her. If you don't say nothing to her, you let her get curious about why you're not saying something to her. But just to make a long story short, I couldn't not say nothing to her. I blew wreck. He told me, he said, man, listen, if you could do that for a week, I'd tell you the next part. I couldn't do it a day. And I felt so bad. This when I started understanding that even though I had a little size and a little swag about myself, I had no strength on the inside. I couldn't tell myself no. And I couldn't stand to see somebody else tell me no. But the girl drugged me again after I broke down. And you know what? I got so fed up about it. I said, you know what? I don't care if she leave me or not, if she don't give me no attention or not. I don't care. I said, I'm going to do what Chili said. I ain't going to say nothing else to this female. And it took 2 months for this girl to come to me and say, hey, can you go get some spoons for me? And I said, yeah, I'll go get some spoons. And when we ducked off, man, the girl made all kind of advances at me. I mean, I'm talking about strong advances. And you know what I found myself doing? Building a little courage. Because when she wanted to throw the ultimate advance at me, I told her no. I know y'all can't believe that. I know y'all can't believe that. Yeah. I told her no. And I walked up out of there. And I felt so good about it. And I felt so scared about it at the same time. Because I was like, dang, I probably did too much. I probably been at my last chance to do what I need to do. And I blew it just like that. But I didn't blow it. Chili was right. Man, the girl got crazy over me because I turned her down. I couldn't believe it. My strength and my self-worth, everything went like, oh, yeah. I thought I was the man. I thought I was the man. And in thinking I was the man, I slipped. I showed up dead. I slipped because now I had everybody watching me. You know, everybody was watching, trying to see what I had going on. And I ended up getting transferred because of that. South Bay was sweet. I had all my friends used to tell me, hey man, Devin, listen, keep your head under the radar, man. You can stay here as long as you want. And that's what time it is with people in prison, especially down here in Florida. You know, when you get to a spot that's sweet, you want to stay there. But them people don't want you to stay there. You know what I'm saying? So you got to fly up under the radar. You know, because they feel like after you've been there a couple of bit time, you get familiar with the officers, and that happens a lot. You know what I'm saying? But if you can stay and keep your nose clean, you know, people will want to keep you there instead of bringing somebody there worse. Because in prison at the time, it was worse. It was bad. Because even though I was chasing these females to try to, you know, hide from the reality of my pain, and you know what my pain was. My pain was 2 natural life sentences in prison without the possibility of parole. You know, when a female looked at me or when anybody looked at me, you know what they seen? They seen lost potential. Because even though they can see a future with me, there's no future with me. Even though I have the talent to do this and do that, it's all done because I had life in prison without the possibility of parole, and it started with a bad choice. And, you know, my mindset at the time in prison was, you know, I'm going to do anything to make me happy. I'm going to do anything I can to make me happy because I don't want to be sad. I don't want to be hopeless. I want to be like, you know, the next inmate that I seen that was my age when he failed. Now he's 60 years old, back bent, crippled, still dying in prison. I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want that to be the vision of what would be my journey or legacy in life. You know, so I was going to make myself happy. And I chased every girl that I could to make myself happy. And you know what? In order to get the females, you know, because you got a lot of them that's, especially in prison, I'm going to let you know, females, just because y'all out here in society right now don't mean that them girls in prison wasn't the same way y'all was with inmates, because they still want the money. And in order for you to get one of them girls in there, guess what you had to have? Some ducats. I had one of my friends step to me one time. You know, I was doing my thing at South Bay. I was in, all officers knew me. I was chasing and had me a couple girls. I was there. You know, I was doing what a lot of other dudes wasn't doing. So I was great. I was unique. I was an individual. And I had a dude come to me there, and he was like, man, because he seen how all the other officers connected to me. And he said, man, listen. He said, man, you got some money? And I was like, man, that's kind of a funny question to ask me, man, but you don't know me if I got some money. He said, no, man, I asked that for a reason because, you know, I always see you talking to a lot of these officers right here, around here. You know, you should be the man. You should be doing your thing. So I'm like, You know, if I was doing my thing or not, I ain't gonna tell you. You know what I'm saying? So guess what this cat do? This cat said, hold on, man. He go to his room and he come back to me and he pull out $4,000 in cash. Now, mind you, I got locked up when I was 16. I've never had $4,000 in cash in my hand at one time. He put it in my hand. And I'm looking at all these Benjamin Franklins and, you know, I'm like, oh my God. Man, where you get this at? He said, hey, man. He said, that's what I'm asking you. Do you got some money? Because, you got to look, but do you got any money in your pocket? Now, I wasn't going to tell this dude I ain't had no money in my pocket. But I didn't have no money in my pocket. And I said, man, listen, man, what you want to do? He was like, man, hook me up, connect me with some of your people. So I was like, you know, I see what I can do. And I was like, well, man, listen, if I connect you with some of them, how I'm going to come up? And he was like, man, listen, you see all that jewelry and stuff you got on? Let me get it all. I said, man, I'm not going to give you all my jewelry. He said, well, you don't want no money then. So I said, you know what? If I get you my jewelry and you lose it, I'm going to take that money you got and your jewelry. He said, bet. And so I gave him my jewelry. Next thing you know, I'm making money. I'm making more money than I can even believe. You know, one instance I had nothing, and the next instance I can see myself putting things to work. But the only thing that it did was, you know, it softened, you know, where I was at. It softened the seriousness of my situation, you know. In order to change, for things to change in your life, you got to understand the seriousness of it. Because if it ain't serious to you, it ain't important to you, you will never change. But I had an officer step to me. He was like, hey man, listen, you know, Super Bowl coming up. What y'all doing for the Super Bowl? And he was a cool officer, so I said, man, listen. I said, we're gonna dig up us some buck, because buck is liquor that inmates make from pineapple juice, potatoes, rice, sugar. I mean, we can make some that you'll think is Hennessy. You taste it. Dead serious. So that's what we told him we was gonna do. We was gonna hang out and we was gonna do all this stuff here. So he said, man, I might have something for you, boy. So we was like, all right, dude might bring us some food. This dude bought us 3 bottles of Absolute vodka in water bottles. So I'm like, man, listen, we finna get towed down. You know what I'm saying? All 3 of these bottles should be enough. So what we did was got 3 styrofoam cups. We got us a little cranberry juice, and we poured a little bit in these styrofoam cups. Said we're gonna sit on the floor in our cell and we're gonna sip a little bit. You know what I'm saying? See what happens. See if we can. Man, listen, all of us got a styrofoam cup, and every last one of us was pissy drunk. I'm talking about we was drunk off 1 bottle. So I'm like, dang, this junk post. So we hung out for the Super Bowl. I'm talking about we ate good, we drunk good, we threw up in the toilets, we did all that stuff, me and our little friends, right? So when I see the dude again, I was like, listen, man, I said, how often can you get this stuff? He was like, man, I can get it whenever I want. And I said, man, listen, I said, bring me 25 bottles. I'm going to pay you to bring them, and I'm going to give you half of what I made on each bottle. And he said he didn't believe me. He brought me them 25 bottles, and I got rid of them in 30 minutes. Now, you do the calculation, folks. I did that with this man for 4 months. And I had so much money till I was scared. Because I said, man, if I get transferred, I'm going to have to leave the money here. How can I take it with me? So I had to do something. So I went to some of my little friends, and I was like, you know, I need to invest in something. And you know what I did? I bought me this chain. The first thing I bought on my own in prison. I bought me a chain. I know one of some of you young heads out there don't know what this is, but I bought me a FUBU watch too. Now go Google FUBU. And back in the 90s and tell me if it wasn't wrong. Okay. But anyway, I started doing my thing. Me and my partner, we started coming up. You know, I jumped in the game with him. You know, I even told my mom, I said, Mama, listen, even though my mother is saved, she's sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost. You know, eventually, later on in my life, I told her about these escapades. But back then, You know, my mama, she didn't know what I was doing. She didn't know what I had going on. So I used to call home and tell her, hey, listen, don't send me no money, I'm good. What you need? What you what? And then when she come visit me, she see I'm fresh. I'm talking about we got blues up here. I don't know where y'all wearing in all them other states. But down here, down south, we wear blues. And listen, my blues was creased to the backs. I'm talking about straight leg, wide leg, slim, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying? I had my thing pressed. You know, I had my jewelry going on, you know, because I was trying to catch. That was the come up. I'm trying to catch anything looking. Instead of men do not look. I'm talking about all females. Okay, let's go. But anyway, yeah, I was doing my thing. I was making money. You know, I was coming up. I still had my little baby, and she was loving because now I was breaking her off. You know, I'm treating her, buying her big cars, making people paint little, you know, mirrors, all kind of stuff. I mean, I'm eating. You know, I got folic acids, I got t-shirts, tank tops, belts, socks, shades, sandals. I'm selling everything. Everything gotta move. Everything gotta move. You know, when you moving fast, sometimes you forget some of the things that you dropped behind. And I dropped a lot of things behind that I didn't pay attention to. You know, some old fools used to tell me, damn it, life is full of decisions. And they are. Life is full of decisions. And every decision that you make is a seed that you sow that'll grow up on you like a monster and bite you and hurt you if you ain't careful. And the seeds that I dropped in my life, in this little journey so far in prison, they grew up. They grew up to bite me bad. And next time when you tune in, I'm gonna show you just how bad. Peace.